Welcome, stranger, or welcome to my shop. Today I'm going to be showing you how to remove the top cover from a Konica Autoreflex T3 and hopefully show you how to put it back together. So let's get started. All right, some top covers are easy to remove. They really don't need any instruction, but some are more difficult. And this is one of those that is more difficult. So I'll see what I can do here to ease things along. Let's see, move that right there. You'll have to excuse the camera being moved around. It can't be helped. Okay, top cover. There are no screws around it on this Konica top cover, where most cameras have screws. What it does have is it has a lock nut here on the advance and a lock nut here on the rewind. And so as you remove the advance and the speed control and the rewind, that you can remove those lock nuts and lift the top off. And I'm trying to decide the best place to start. Since I didn't think this through, maybe I'll move that up a little. Okay, let's start with the rewind. They're always pretty easy. Open the back on this one. Most of the time, on the videos I've seen, and I'm looking for it here, I'll find it, they will stick a screwdriver tip in there like this on those prongs. But in the past I did that, but they kept bending, making little notches here, which were unsightly. I don't think they hurt anything, but they're weak points. And eventually I broke one off, and a little later broke another one off and decided that sticking a screwdriver wasn't the best way to do this. And so what I use now is a pair of tweezers, and that way the tweezer goes from the top to the bottom and applies the pressure evenly and doesn't leave an indent. And I'm going to probably repeat that in a lot of videos. On the top here, also, most on the repair videos, they pull this out and they use this arm here, but these arms are not very strong and they can break off. So you want to leave them pressed in and twist it with your hands like this. That way you won't break anything. And take it off just like that. This shaft will fall down. The shaft has, switch to another camera here. The shaft has, and it will not focus, of course. You see there a spring and a washer. The washer, when the shaft is up on the camera, keeps that spring from going up into the hole and keeps tension on it. So when you reassemble it, you want to have the spring and the washer. You don't want to lose that washer. So now let's set those parts aside. And I was telling you about a lock nut. There's your lock nut right there. And now we're going to remove that. And I don't know how I'm going to do this without getting in the way of my own camera. Let's try this other camera. I'm going to have to learn how to make tutorials without getting in the way. Most video tutorials I've seen have an overhead cam, but I don't like that view. I get tired of it. I'd rather have the two cameras at an angle. It makes it a little more interesting than just having one overhead all the time. Okay, let's move on. The next thing that we'll probably take off is this advance lever, so we can remove the nut underneath it. Now on the top here, I'm going to get in close again. I add a lot of details in my tutorials, which most don't, and they can seem tedious to people that are impatient. But to the beginner who knows nothing about cameras, these things have to be explained. This right here unscrews. It's this top cover is considered a large nut, and the center is your thread, and this one is a right. And you've got to grip your tool, whatever tool you decide to use, on this flat edge right here. When these cameras were new, and I'm looking for my tool here, there I found it. When these cameras were new, it was real easy to get the camera apart, but as they've gotten older, the parts have gotten harder and harder to remove. And I did a little research on Google, and the metal, I looked up fusing. They have a different word for it. Screws out there. But the metal on cameras, if you leave them in years, they start joining. Sometimes it's oxide, sometimes it's other things, but the metal on metal pressed together, they eventually fuse. And it makes them really hard to get out on old cameras. Some of these cameras are 40 and 50 years old, or will be 50 pretty soon. And it requires more torque, which requires stronger tools. And so I'm going to repeat that in video, in tutorial after tutorial. You're going to get tired of hearing it, but remember that each tutorial has people who are just seeing it for the first time. So it has to be explained over and over. Okay, this also here is a threaded, and it's round. It's got 2 notches in the side, thankfully. Makes things a lot easier. And so, I'm going to use this right here. I could explain what each tool is and where to buy it and things like that, but then these videos would get way too long. Move that over there where you can see. I'm sorry, it's just the nature of the beast here that it's going to be hard to film. And this one, by the way, is also a right. As far as I know, there's nothing on the top of this camera that's to the left. That's important for a beginner to know, because if they try to force it the wrong direction, they'll break it off into the camera, and then it's pretty much game over. Okay, you've got your you've got that nut on top first. Then you've got this strange looking object here, and what it does, it presses down. It's a clip, actually, strange looking clip, but it's a clip. And as it presses down, you can see here, it's cut a little groove in the top. I think that's brass, looks like brass. And what it does is that if you didn't have that on there, the advanced lever would just flop. And this way you can press it in and it'll stay, or you can press it out and it will stay. Okay, and then you got this right here, which engages this right here. And it's not, what is the word, symmetrical? It only goes on one way. Maybe it's another way of putting it. And so what you do with all cameras when you're taking them apart, even I do it after all these years, 40 plus years, is I mark them. And now when I grab that part off an hour later, or if 2 days later, I know that that black mark always faces front. That's my rule for when I'm repairing. I never put them in any other place, always face front. And that way, following that rule, I know. And I'm looking at the screen, and I'm looking down at my hands, and there we go. Okay, marked it, you can see. And you always want to mark cameras as you go into them. Or if you've got a cell phone, you can take pictures of them also, so you know how things go. I always put my parts together. I don't separate them. And there's some parts there and some parts there. I use these little paint trays because they are heavy and they won't knock over. If you hit one, it hopefully won't scatter parts. Okay, there's your lock nut, your second one. And we'll do the same we did last time. We'll grab it like so. There's probably another tool I got in my box that would work better than that one. They've got rounded tips, and I really need some square ones for that job. But sometimes you can get away with doing that. Okay. And there it is. Now on lock nuts, on any camera, the flat side goes down. What do I mean by flat? I don't know if you're going to be able to see it on the camera there, but one side's flat and the top has rounded shoulders. And you always want the rounded shoulders of a lock nut to be up and the flat side to be down. This is what I meant about having details. An amateur might not know, and he might put it on upside down. For somebody who's done it for a while, they know what the difference is. Okay, we've got our advance removed. We got our rewind removed. The next thing we need to remove is the speed control, which can be complicated. And this is the part that I left last because it's the part that can cause problems. But before we do, we're going to remove this bracket, flash bracket. This is a right. Usually you just use your fingers. It doesn't require a tool. I've seen a few that were stuck and I had to remove a tool, but don't. Okay. The camera. You can see there it's got two notches on the side. Only fits one way. But you unscrew that nut and take that off. There's the contact there, that little brass stud that goes up to the top here, the center post, which trips your flash. Okay, move that to the side. All right, let's get on to this speed control. Removing the speed control, an amateur might just set it anywhere and remove that center screw, nut, whatever you want to call it. And then when he gets ready to put it back together, the timing's off. Everything's in the wrong place. He doesn't know exactly where he should put it because things in the camera can move when you just grab a speed control and pull it off. In other words, there's things under here that are spring-loaded. So what you want to do, or I've learned from years of experience, is set it at 1,000. And the ASA right now is set at 100. You want to turn it down to 12. And if you do those two things, you can save yourself a lot of trouble. Get it over here where you can see it. It's set at 1,000 at 12. And that's where you want it when you remove the top cover. Okay, now you can remove that nut. And hopefully you'll be, let's call it safe. If you're ever safe repairing a camera, which I don't know if you ever are. And I'm having trouble lining up my holes here. There we go. Hold that. Turn that, and my hands are in the way. Sorry. It's the nature of the working on repairing and photographing at the same time. Hard to do both. Just have to use your imagination. Okay, there it is. Use my other camera. As you can see there, unscrewed it and pulled it out. Again, I'm sorry about the how slow this videos are and how tedious, but for a beginner who has no experience, this is necessary. Next thing we need to do is remove this plate which has the speeds on it. Set it to the side. And underneath it is the ASA plate. You'll notice that it has a notch there, a stud, which helps with placement when you put it back together, which goes right into here. Okay, now that we've got those plates off, what I want to do is mark it right here. It doesn't really make any difference where you mark it, as long as you mark both sides. So when you're putting it back together, I'm having a little trouble here looking up at the monitor and down at it what I'm doing. Here we go. Just as you go into a camera, mark everything, even if you don't need it. Those are your timing marks. They save you a lot of time, and they save peace of mind. Sometimes you'll put a part back and you'll say, well, I think it goes like that, but you're never quite sure. And then you have an uneasy feeling as you're putting your camera back together because you're not sure. Now what happens now is the speed control comes out, and this shaft here stays put, and the speed control rises up. And I'll show you here. Slides right off, like so. And now we're going to have to look down inside to show you what I'm talking about. Get a pair of tweezers here. Right here is a string. And this string goes over to the meter over on the rewind side, and it's spring loaded. If you take the camera apart and don't set it into the 1012 as I showed you, it will, what am I trying to say? It will spring into the wrong position, or it will set into the wrong position. So when you're putting your camera back together, you won't know exactly where it goes. But at 1012, it always comes up like this. The stud will be against the stud here. The spring will be relaxed. There's no pressure on it. It's not pulling, no tension. And so when you put the speed control back in, everything will fall into position. But if you do it and you set it at one of the other positions on the speed control, when you pull that off, you'll hear a snap. And what happens is it goes back like this. The other thing you could do, I suppose, is you could just go ahead and pull it off at any position. But to put it back, it needs to be at 1012. 1000 speed, 12 ASA. But I like to just go ahead and set the knob to begin with at 1012, and that way I'm set. Okay, let's get back to here. That should be everything. It should come off now. Looking at it, got speed, got the, oh, there's one other thing here I did not take off, which is not that important. right here on the advance is a small plate. I suppose it's there for looks or maybe to help keep out dust. All right, the next thing I normally get is I got a knife here that's been dulled. I've ran a file over it in sandpaper. I don't need it this time, but there, top cover comes off nice and clean. Black is a beautiful color for cameras. I like black, but it's really a dickens to keep the fingerprints off it. On a silver camera, you don't have to clean it, but with the black top, you have to constantly clean the top cover from fingerprints. Autoreflex T3. Window. It's your hole here where the flash contact goes through. Got your rewind. Some of the paint come off there. T3. Window for your counter. Your release. That's multiple exposure, ME. Press that over in advance and the camera will not advance. A feature the cameras had back then, before we have all the Photoshop and things we have today. I never used it, but it was there. Okay, putting it back. Putting it back. Okay, we're recording. Had to take a little break there. Putting the top cover back on. On most videos I've seen on YouTube, they tell you how to take them off, but they don't really tell you how to put them back together. And if anybody out there has done anything on different machinery, you know that putting it back together quite often is more difficult than taking it apart. And so we're going to, unfortunately, if you're impatient type, we're going to have to watch me again put it back together. Now, the first thing to watch out for when you put the top cover back on it, I have totally reassembled a Konica before, and it would not fire because I got this in the wrong position. I don't even remember what position it needs to be in, but when you put it in the off, I've got it on the camera now, and you press, it should not fire. It should be locked. When you put it in the on position, it should fire. And that's the only test you need to make there. I don't know if I've tried it on off and on, and I forgot which way it's supposed to be, but it's just a quick check. You need to charge it here. Turn that, charge the camera. Again, put it here, see if it fires. Back here to fire the camera. Okay, we got that. The next thing we need to do is we need to put the nut here and a nut here to keep the top cover on and keep it tight. Around to the front, everything looks flush. So we'll grab first the nut for the advance. Okay, there's the two lock nuts. One's for the advance, one's for the rewind. They look identical, and they might even be. I guess we'll find out. Okay, move this up here. Move this back over here. Move that up a little bit. Try to make some room here so I can see what I'm doing. It took me a while, but I finally got it started. You'll notice that the shoulder, the rounded shoulder, is up. The flat side is down. That's the way it goes. That's the way it goes on most cameras. Okay, and I'll put some tension on it. We don't need to put much, just a little bit. It's not that important. Okay, now we do the same on the rewind side. Rounded shoulder up. This video is going to need a lot of editing. I've had to reshoot a lot of this. Boy, it's hard to repair on camera. Okay, we got the lock nuts now on both sides. That'll hold everything down while we're working. And as far as what you want to start with, rewind. That'd be out of the way, and it's an easy one. Lay it on its side, open the back. Next thing we need to do is get the parts. Again, as I've showed you, spring, washer, and then the rewind knob. Put this through here. It's spring loaded. Not sure what the purpose of that is, but there may have been a washer on there at one time. I can't remember in this particular camera whether there's a washer or not. They normally put a washer on there to hold the rewind knob slightly up off the camera so it doesn't scratch it. I don't have a, well, yeah, actually I do have a T3, but I'm not going to go up to the storage to get it. Okay, again, use a flat surface like a pair of tweezers. And as far as tightening it, just don't use the knob or the lever on the rewind. You'll break it, or you might break it. Just hand tight. Or you can use a tool that has maybe a rubber lining on the jaws. Would also. I've done that in the past, but not very often, just a little bit. I don't really need to get them too tight. Okay, rewind was easy. Now, I normally don't use the advance because it kind of gets in the way of working on the speed control. In other words, if both hands are in here, the advance gets in the way. So normally I do the advance last. So we've got the speed control. And I'm going to go over here and get this. This is where your marks come in handy. So you know that this has not changed. That's where it belongs. You have hopefully taken it off at 1012, so everything in here is in position. So if you've done everything right, it should slide right over here and fall down, and it does. It's flush here at the top. If something were wrong, this would be down, there'd be a hole there. And that's what happens to amateurs when they take it apart and they don't set it at 1000 or and 12 ASA, is they get that out of whack. They can eventually figure it out, but it may take them, you know, counting on our experience there, around half hour, an hour, through trial and error. And even then, they won't know if they got it back right. That's the problem. That's the problem with a lot of camera repairs, that sometimes you can get something working or back together, but you're not sure if you've done it right or not. And it's unsettling to have a camera when you're not sure if you've done things right. Okay. The next thing that goes on is this ASA plate. Again, the stud right here goes in the hole right there. It's for it, so it's very easy to get right. And again, ASA is in the hole there, and it's positioned. And then the speed plate, or the plate that shows the speeds, lists runs right on top. And again, like so. And again, since you started out at 1012, when it fits back in there, you look at it, it's still at 1012, which you know then you've done it right. Where if you take it off at, say, 125 at 100 ASA, you don't know where it's supposed to be. You don't know what's going on, sure. And you'll, trial and error, you'll eventually get it, but you won't feel comfortable about it because you won't know if you did it right or not. So 1012 on this camera. Different cameras are different. You wouldn't use this speeds and ASA setup for all cameras, but for this one you do, which is rather unusual in some ways. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to put the nut back in the center. Okay, it's down, it's touching. That nut is very small, and you don't want to put much pressure on it over here when you tighten it, or you'll break it. I have broken them before in the past. A lot of cameras use this type nut in the center, and it works good, but they do break. So how tight? Well, 1 to 10, a 1 or a 2 maybe, or a 1.5. Just barely tighten it up. You don't want to snap that off. Okay, so now your speed control is working, and your ASA is working, and I've got it now set at 100 and 125 where it was to begin with. So you know the camera is working well. You can look through the viewfinder and see the speed that it's set at. They should match up. Okay, the next thing is the advance. And I can see now that I screwed up. Okay, well, that happens in camera repair. When I was working, I forgot to put that one part back, that plate. And so now I'm going to have to fix my mistake. And I could edit this out, but I'm leaving you at end to show you that even I still make mistakes after all these years. There's a hole right here, and there's a stud down there. You match them up, and it fits right in there, as you can see. Now your lock nut goes on there. It's not the first time I've left that off. I recall doing it many times. After you've been repairing on a camera 2 or 3 days, you want to get it back together, and you start slapping things on there, and you forget things. Okay, that I don't know if it's a dust cover. It's just there for looks. Probably there for looks, since it's kind of raised up. Okay, next thing is this. I don't know what you would call this. A timing cam. Somebody out there that does car work probably could tell you. But it has to be in a certain position, and the advance lever engages with it. And as you can see, my mark right here is faced forward, so I know I've got it the right face up, and I've got it pointed in the right direction. In other words, I hadn't flipped it over. Okay. Then the next thing is the advanced lever itself. And then the next, go get my non-magnetic, is this little strange little clip here, which gives friction to the top of the advanced lever. And then we'll screw that on like so. It does need to be real tight. I'm wondering just now, when I'm going through this in the editor, how many times I'm going to find that I block the camera with my hand. Okay, there we go. All right, so you can see the little clip, you can see the edge of it there, pointing down. And now when you push the advance in, it stays. Or if you pull it out, it stays. It's not just flopping around like a fish. Push that in. Okay. And then this goes in, this nut. Again, let's see how thick that is. I'm just curious. That's still pretty thin. Let's see if I'm on the right camera. Yeah, I am. A plate this size can apply a lot of pressure to this threaded shaft. And you can snap it. And I have snapped them. And when they snap down inside, that's be a subject of another video, but it's troublesome. Several hours with a drill. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for this tool here. These are, I've tried all kinds of tools, and I eventually just got these and wrapped some tape around them. And going to, you don't want to get it, like I said, too tight. You don't want to put much pressure on it. So that's enough. What is that? Oh, about a 2 on a 1 to 10. Okay, so now it's firing. You can see there green, red. Red needs to be advanced. Green, it's advanced and fires. Okay, oh, forgot this part. Switch. Slip that in there like so. And you push this stud down inside. It touches a contact. So when you mount your flash on the flash shoe, it fires. This, just finger tight. Some people just leave it off the camera. All right. And black doesn't show up very well on the camera, but you've taken the top cover off now, and it looks good, and it's firing. And you've put the top cover back on. You've probably seen what I meant, that you need always a video on how to put something back together as well as take it apart, because there's little things you need to know, things you need to match up, things you need to check. Okay, that's it. That's how to take the top cover off a Konica Autoreflex T3. Okay, hope you enjoyed that video on how to remove the top cover off a Konica Autoreflex T3. It was a bit long. I make my videos for beginners, people who've never been in a camera before, not people who've had some experience. So they may seem tedious to people who have experience repairing cameras. But beginners need to be shown everything, and they need to be shown why and how to do it and how to mark it so they can get in the camera in and out without causing any damage. And it requires extra time. Also, as I explained, taking a camera apart is not enough. You've got to explain to beginners how to put it back together, because putting a camera back together is harder than taking it apart. What else? Tools. I don't explain tools because it would make the video much too long. The tools that I used back in the 70s and 80s won't work on cameras any longer because the parts have been together so long they've somewhat fused. And that's the word. I did a Google and researched the subject a little bit. That's as good a word as any. And they require a lot of torque sometimes to get the parts off the camera. And a little air, maybe sometimes a little oil, and they'll go right back on very easily. And they'll come off the next time also very easily. But getting them off that first time after a part's been in position for 40 plus years takes a lot of torque. And so parts, I say parts, I'm slipping, tools will have to be made. You'll have to use Dremel tools or files and make your own tools that have long handles, which give you some torque. And I'm rambling, and that's it. Thanks for dropping by.